It's time for Energy Insights, where you get an inside view and a local perspective of all the oil and gas progress going on in the Mid-Ohio Valley. This program is brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association and can be heard every Saturday on WMOA AM 1490 and FM 101.3, JAW's Classic Country FM 100.9, and ESPN AM 630 and FM 92.9. Here's Johnny Wharf, your local host.
Energy Insights, the program. We're joined by Jerry James, Artex Oil, a longtime guest and friend on our show and of our radio station. And so we'll talk several times on this program, but selfishly, I'm going to bring up the beginnings of Artex Oil. And because I know there's a little connection to the business that I'm in, and I've sat with you at dinner and hear you regale some really cool stories about how you got started, who you got started with, and where it all came about.
Well, I appreciate you having us on today. So the Artex Oil Company we operate today started 30 years ago in 1995 in Ohio. But we started with a business partner named Art Roop, and he had a company before that named Artex Oil Company. And he'd started drilling wells in Texas, hence the name Artex, Archers County, Texas. And he drilled wells in West Virginia and Ohio. But Mr. Root passed away a couple years ago at 104 and a half. When you get over 100, you start counting halves again. And what I didn't know until he passed away, and I got the corporate book for the old Artex, that it originally was a company called Specialty Records, which may not ring a bell with a lot of people till you know what their artists were. So Mr. Roop's artists back in the 1950s and everything were people like Little Richard, Sam Cooke, and artists like that. And a lot of people give him actually credit for recording the first rock and roll song before Rocket 88, which was done by Ike Turner.
Oh, wow. So, yeah. And again, where, at what point in Jerry James' life do you run into Roop?
Art Roop. Well, you know, I graduated from Merida College as a petroleum engineer and worked in Texas and worked a little bit offshore, and then came back to Ohio, back to Marietta. I'm not from Marietta, but got an offer to come back to work for Marietta for my old chairman department, Elmer Templeton. And I was consulting, and after a while, Elmer started retiring. I started my own consulting business. At that point, I was doing consulting, petroleum engineering, and he owned assets in Ohio and West Virginia. And I helped him kind of clean some of the problems up he was having with those assets. And then one day, out of the blue, he just wrote me a letter, and he says, you know, I've been thinking about it. He says, I think that, you know, I'd like you to manage all of my assets. And that's how we started in 1995, operating everything for him.
And then the legacy that is Artex Oil that we know well here in Marietta with you and Gene and Don and the guys, just something I know so well respected around here, but the pride that you must have in looking back and saying, this worked out all right.
It did. It did. Being a typical engineer, we overthink things and are kind of cautious. And I thought, well, I'm not sure I want to go to work for somebody else because I just got out of that situation. But I appreciate your kind comments, and it just couldn't have worked out any better. It worked wonderful for him. In his last third of his life, it was like he was just revitalized and had a new career. And then all the money that he made, he left to a foundation. And so all the money we made for him all those years is now in a foundation somewhere doing some good.
That's fantastic. I'd love to. I'd learned that you'd count halves after 100. I hope I get the opportunity to do that. That's right. Jerry James is our guest, the program and Energy Insights. And per usual, we'll continue our conversation with Jerry James from Artex Oil. And we thank the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Jerry James, our guest again from Artex Oil, and we did a little bit at History Bank last time we talked, and maybe you can bring us to current stage, new administration. Here we are in things, you look at the oil and gas industry and say, man, maybe something different is clicking, coming fast, is it?
It is. I mean, what we've switched for was, you know, in the last 4 years, we spent a lot of people thinking we could do away with hydrocarbons, oil and gas, coal, and everything like that. I think a lot of people are now realizing the vast majority of our energy all comes from hydrocarbons, and we can't get rid of it. We may supplement with other things, but we can't replace it. At the same time, what's happening is, and this is kind of interesting, when you look at the use of hydrocarbons, like natural gas, we've had some peaks in the usage of it because, quite frankly, we deindustrialized. What's happening right now is exciting for our region is, one, we're reindustrializing, which is why I volunteer for a group called Shale Crescent, and I know you do too, to bring manufacturing jobs here. At the same time, there's new industries coming on, like artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence consume electricity just like manufacturing plants do, in enormous quantities.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. I guess it does, yeah.
Yeah, so it's enormous quantities, but when you look in the eastern United States, there's only 3 states east of Mississippi that can provide the fuel to fuel artificial intelligence. It's Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania, the area we call the Shale Crescent, where the entire world's oil and gas industry started. So this is a huge opportunity for us to not only supply the fuel for new electricity plants, for new artificial intelligence centers, for what spins off of them. And we're the forefront of this. We are the forefront. We're the only place in East Mississippi can do this.
You mentioned Shale Crescent USA and an opportunity for folks from here with the knowledge to go out and try to draw folks back here. But at some point, they're going to have to say, why didn't we think about this sooner, right? Because this is, as you just mentioned, the only place that has the energy.
It is. We always like to tell people, and I know you're aware of this one, and you helped us come up with some of this stuff when we first started. If Ohio, West Virginia, and Pennsylvania formed a country, we would be the 3rd largest natural gas producer in the world, behind Russia and the rest of the United States. That gives you an idea of just how big this is. Now, all of a sudden, though, we're back to as we start onshoring manufacturing jobs, which we are, and we accelerate that, and we create a new industry with artificial intelligence. We've got the fuel to run all of that.
All right, fantastic, and a little smarter each and every week is what we're trying to do for our listeners here and the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association, making that possible right here with Energy Insights. And we thank Jerry James for being our guest. Energy Insights on a Saturday morning, and Jerry James, our guest. We've had an opportunity, Jerry. We talked most recently, and I've been thinking about it since you brought it up, but the idea that AI plays into the oil and gas industry, in that it is something at the forefront that is using electricity, and maybe you can explain that again for our listeners, because it's really intriguing.
Yeah, we're actually going back to consuming electricity back like when we had additional industry that grew during our parents' and our grandparents' era. There was a report recently that came out in Ohio and said we're going to, the next 10 years, have to add 16 gigawatts of electricity. Now, if you're like me, that doesn't mean anything. If you've seen the Guernsey Power Plant along I-77, sure, that produces 1.8 gigawatts. So we're going to need roughly 8 or 9 of those Guernsey plants just to meet the demand growth for electricity in Ohio. And this is kind of a new phenomenon, because what about a generation ago, we made a mistake, an enormous mistake. We let China and the World Trade Organization, and when we did, we lost about 1/3 of our manufacturing jobs, and that devastated places like Ohio. At the same time, you've seen the demand for electricity then flatten because we got rid of so many of our manufacturing jobs. Now we're talking about this enormous growth coming because we're onshoring manufacturing jobs. At the same time, we've got new things that use electricity at manufacturing scale things like artificial intelligence. So this is a dramatic change, but fortunately, Ohio's got the energy to handle this, but it's going to take a lot of effort to get ready for it.
And if somebody says, let's just say you're out talking about this, and somebody says, wait, where'd you get that? These are studies that have been done that can basically put it right down on paper, right?
Correct. The Ohio Business Roundtable, which is kind of think of as like a super chamber of commerce. It's the top 30 or 35 companies in Ohio. It's people like Honda, American Electric Power, all the major corporations in Ohio belong to the Ohio Business Roundtable. They got concerned that all of a sudden they were seeing this electricity demand growth. So they commissioned a study that was just issued here in the last month or so. And they looked at this, and the numbers come from them. And so what we've done in the oil and gas industry, we're getting ready to do a supplemental study and say, okay, if you need that much electricity, how much natural gas is that going to occur? And it's significant. I mean, it's significant.
All right. Always intriguing. Love the history stuff as well to keep us up to date on the industry and get us a little smarter about the oil and gas industry. As always, thanks for your time. I appreciate what you do in our community. I love that you're a listener. I love that you're a Guardians fan and all that comes with it. So.
Yeah, I appreciate your radio station.
Okay.
There's nothing better than to have real radio.
I'll take that.
It's real radio with real people behind the mic.
I love it. There you go. Jerry James, our guest here, stroking the radio, guys. Energy Insights, the program brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association.
Thank you for listening to Energy Insights, brought to you by the Southeastern Ohio Oil and Gas Association. Tune in every Saturday morning on WMOA Local Radio, Jaws Country, and ESPN as Johnny Wharf brings you a local and inside perspective on the oil and gas industry right here in the Mid-Ohio Valley.